Hello everybody.
Number
It's nice to interact on a topic called assessment of students irrespective of the school or university or college students. Because I have seen in my professional life there is always a confusion about what kind of assessment has to be done with respect to these students. People talk about people talk about the formative assessment, people talk about the summative assessment, and that's why we always take these two topics very specifically with examples to the student teachers. What do we talk about assessment, and that about the assessment of learning is one topic one should know very clearly, especially the differences between assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. What is actually the assessment of learning? It may be you must have finished a month, you must have finished the teaching of one whole term. It may be you must have finished teaching of the whole year. But there has to be a system which is called assessment, knowing what kind of improvement the child has in this phase of one semester or the whole year. And that's why in the name of assessment we conduct examination. That will give us an idea what extent the child has learned the various system of pedagogy we have used. And examination gives a clear picture very often that in terms of concept clarity, in terms of the examples he can quote, in terms of what do we call his ability to write the kind of questions you have put up. And that talks about assessment of learning. Let's talk about the assessment for learning. Here the purpose changes. When it comes to the question of assessment for learning, this is not just for the students but even for the teachers. For the students, of course, he or she will come to know what he has learned and what he or she could write properly or speak properly. And when it comes to the question of the teachers, we will come to know, did we succeed in conducting a lesson or providing the subject matter or the kind of pedagogy which we have used. It also talks about the gaps which we can fill in with the hard work, maybe in a period of time. That also gives an idea about student stage, the kind of variation the student, what kind of learning he or she has taken. It has taken place. There may be students who could pick up fast. There may be students who are weak. There may be students who are average. So it kind of like a doctor. We are able to do a kind of diagnosis, what exactly is to be done with the students. And also, and of course this can be done not only through written examination, it can be through viva, it can be through quiz, it can be through discussion. So it depends. The teacher can use the kind of pedagogy. And the other term, that is assessment as learning. Here it comes to the more or less it goes to the student, the learners. What he has learned and what's the kind of learning he has to do, and that gives a clear picture to him or her that what this area he has understood or he has to further learn in this area. And of course we can, to a large extent, we can call it as a self-learning. And of course that talks about the kind of the self-responsibility the child seems to have, or he or she should have. So here we talk about assessment of learning, which in terms of summative assessment. We talk about assessment for learning. It talks about the formative assessment, and we also talk about assessment as learning. So it, to me, in when it comes to the question of any school level, university level, all three do matter. So we have a clarity on the three kinds of assessment. Now let's talk about what's the outcome. So when it comes to the question of outcome, as I mentioned over there, the formative assessment, the first one, the child comes to learn or understand how he is learning. What are the kind of defects, or what are the kind of, for example, in mathematics, where he lacks or she lacks. And also, it gives an opportunity for the teachers to motivate the child. The child also understands where are his strengths and weaknesses. I also remember my childhood. There were subjects which were very dear to me, and the subjects which I never wanted to take up because of course, one major is, I can say, I didn't understand the concepts. I cannot blame the teacher. Maybe he or she should not exactly pinpoint at my weakness and at my strength. But there are subjects like science, for example, English, for example, which I had a self-motivation I had. But there are subjects which I don't know, I'm not able to say even today where I went wrong. Here comes the role of the teacher. He or she will come to know where the weakness of the child is, and he can touch that particular weakness and correct it. And that too before getting too late. And coming to the more than everything, that gives an awareness about the students. And coming to the aspect of the summative assessment, we know that finally the summative assessment decides your possibility of going into the next class. The summative assessment gives you an idea about where you have done the best possible way and where you are weak in the subjects. Now, of course, maybe possibly you must have failed in that paper also. And of course, there are mechanisms in most of the schools. Even if a child fails, a corrective examination or corrective testing is being done. So ultimately, it also talks about me as a teacher. I can say it is judging myself. I believe that if a child is failing, I do have a role in that, because I did not come to know about the point where or the time where I could not point out his problem or her problem or correct myself. And of course is ranking a student, because in a class of 40 or 50, we know that everybody will not be the students who are progressing in equal manner. So there is a possibility of ranking. To me, of course, there are people who have different ideas about it. To me, everybody has to be ranked equally. Of course, the students will have their own complaints, because when they rank, when they are getting the maximum marks in terms of 80 or 90, if you rank them along with 50 or 60%, they will have a reservation. Of course, I am giving it to the teacher, because that's a kind of, what do we call, the ideas one carries with them. And When it comes to the senior classes, for example, 12th standard or even course in graduation also, it's always designing the future. What kind of career one has to take up? What kind of professional study one has to take up? So summative assessment matters over here. What kind of employability? There are students who always look into what is the employability of the particular professional study one is taking up. So the summative assessment is over there, but there are many professional courses where what exactly the total percentage matters over there, where exactly the ranking in the seat matters over there. So these are all what do we call different peripherals when we talk about the summative assessment. And that's in short about the assessment overview. We have, as I said earlier, the third one, assessment as learning, where the child becomes an independent person of assessment. He assesses himself or she assesses himself, where I stand. And the latest the studies talk about when the child comes to a level of 9th or 10th, it has to be the child who should decide where I lack, where I progress, where I to further improve. So here we touch the topic of the assessment for learning and assessment of learning and assessment as learning. We will come to the next topic later. Thank you.